everybody, with our dearest friend, someone we love so much, admire, and just are so happy to be with, Chelsea Handler, everybody.
Come on.
Birthday girl.
Birthday girl.
She just turned 50. I just turned 50. And one thing that I think is something that's such an art in people that I admire is when they trust themselves, they know themselves, and they don't question their decisions. They're not looking in a rearview mirror thinking, what if? They're not living in the future thinking, how is this all going to work? What if this and this happens? How do you handle that?
I feel like decision-making, I've made mistakes, obviously, but I don't harp on them. And I feel like decision-making is sometimes you're choosing something, and when you're indecisive, you keep going back and forth. And it's like, there is no, just make a decision, and then that becomes the right decision. You know, I think intentionally, when you're deciding between something, you're like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. This is going to be, and most often, it doesn't matter which choice you make. You know, it's not life or death. It's just a matter of making a good decision. But once you make a decision, it can become the good decision because you put your attitude behind it and your energy behind it. And I think that's something that I've started to learn as I've gotten older through therapy, is that I do trust myself. I do know what's best for me. Nobody knows what's best for me more than I do. So I've stopped second guessing the things that I do. And I know that even if it doesn't work out in the way that I want it, I'll be able to navigate out of that too. Yeah. It's not a catastrophe if it doesn't work out. It's just like, okay, then we pivot and go that way. So I don't put so much weight on anything anymore. You know, if something doesn't work out for me, then it just doesn't work out.
Were you always like this? Did you have a time where things did feel life or death, weight of the world, where you weren't as good at handling things like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think before I went to therapy, I had such a highs and lows, and I was so reactive to everything. You know, if I didn't like someone, they knew about it immediately. If I had an opinion, it was out there. Then I realized, oh, maybe my opinions aren't necessary to share all the time. You know, maybe I don't have to say what I think all the time, and maybe I can be a little gentler and kinder to people who are going through something, because that's another thing that we all need to learn, is that everyone is kind of going through something, and to be patient with other people who aren't necessarily as confident or as self-assured, you know, as they may want to be.
But that's the stuff that you learn as you get older, as we grow, right? As we evolve. And I have read all of your books, Chelsea. We know how funny you are. This book is hilarious as well, but there's something deeper going on. There's a wisdom in it, you know? And I feel like, do you feel like this, you guys, as we read Chelsea's books, what, this is the 7th book?
7.
It's crazy, right? Bestseller consecutively. You know. But I feel like, in a way, we are growing up with you. And I'm curious, were you nervous to share that side of you in this book?
No, I want everyone to feel this. Like, I want to share this because I want people to feel the way that I feel. I want people and anyone who doesn't feel seen to feel seen. Like, every single person matters. And I wanted to share the joy of my life as, like, kind of a roadmap to trusting your gut and really being brave about the choices that you make, and actually sitting with yourself and getting to know what the right path for you is. And that's not something that's easily done all the time. You know, sometimes we don't want to be alone. We don't want to be with our own thoughts. But it is the way to become free, is to really sit with yourself, understand yourself, and go after. If you want to live a non-traditional life, get after it. You know, your value doesn't come only from being a mother or being a wife. I add value to a million people's lives without doing either one of those things. And we all have that power.
Do you have people in your life, and I know one particular person from the book, it's Jane Fonda. And in fact, I had been wanting to go to those infamous Jane Fonda. She has these like dance parties.
I've heard of them. And
they just sounded so amazing. And I was always hoping maybe one day someone would invite me. Someone finally did. It was Chelsea Handler. And I was like, oh my God, I get to go to the famous Jane Fonda dance party. And Jane Fonda then came on our show here and said, yeah, you were with Chelsea at my party, and she was in a grumpy mood that night. And it's so funny because I didn't think so at all. Like, I just thought you were your salty dog self. I didn't even got fazed. And apparently, through the story, I learned she called you in.
She asked to talk to me, and she said, and it was kind of like I was being summoned to Jane Fonda's house. She confronted me and said I was badly behaved and that I offended a bunch of people, and she wasn't wrong. And it was mortifying. It was absolutely mortifying, but I had just started therapy. This was about 10 years ago. I had just started therapy, so I knew enough not to defend myself, not to reach for excuses and say, I just accepted the truth of the information. And the more meaningful part of it was that she was being a sister to me by even taking the time to tell me this, because she could have blown me off and never spoken to me again. She didn't do that. She asked me to come to her house because she cared about me and said, you can do much better than this. This isn't who you are.
How do we get off of...
That's a good friend.
It was.
Right?
It was modeling for me the kind of woman that I want to become. You know, at that time, I was like, I want to be the type of woman that tells women the truth.
And if you're coming, you know, from a healthy place, I think you're able to guide other people. And I want to get into, you said such an important word, because so much of my life lessons, I talk so much about therapy and how it's been my greatest catalyst, but it's also been my friends that have given me tough love, pulled me aside, and told me things that were very hard to hear. And you said, I didn't want to get defensive. What's a great tip for you feel it coming on and how to quell it down so we can listen to people, because they do exactly what you said, which is they're doing it because they care. If they didn't, they wouldn't be taking the time.
And also, the idea is if you are defensive, you're usually wrong. Because if you're right, you don't have to defend yourself. Like, it only matters if it's true. And Jane Fonda, I knew she wasn't making this up. And when someone's giving you something that is hard to hear, you should be in gratitude for the honesty of that. You should be in gratitude because you can make the change to be... Like, I wasn't ever going to let Jane Fonda have to speak to me again. That was the first time was the last time.
Understood.
And she made me a better person because of that conversation. And since that conversation... I've done that for other women because that's the roadmap that she put out there for me. And it's just so valuable and so important, especially in the time that we're living in, that women are sticking together. We need each other more than we ever have.
It's a running theme throughout this book. I wrote down the word sisterhood while I was reading this book, because you are talking about taking care of other women, the younger generation, respecting.
And you're a sister too.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Well, thank you. But it is, you know, let's use the all-encompassing sisterhood,
Yes.
right? It's about humanity, and that's
It
sort
is.
of like I know this book is funny, but Chelsea, I have to say, as somebody known you for a long time and seen your evolution and see your growth, it is reflected in every single page in this book. And it's so amazing to see your friend grow like this. I'm so proud of you.
I'm loving reading it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have to cut to a quick commercial break. We don't want to, but the good news is more of Chelsea's 50th birthday bash continues right after this.